everyone. Ann Louise Gittleman here with another episode of First Lady of Nutrition podcast. I'm the First Lady of Nutrition, and I've spent most of my 40 years looking at different ways of dealing with health. I've been rewriting the rules of nutrition and casting a light on areas such as weight loss, detoxification, and women's health. But there's one area of expertise that I've never delved into, which is autoimmune conditions. And today I have a woman who is absolutely a living legend. Dr. Wahls restored her health using a diet and lifestyle program designed specifically for her brain, and now pedals her bike to work each day because she was once in a wheelchair. Welcome to First Lady of Nutrition, Dr. Wahls. You're certainly an example of a remarkable recovery.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Tell me all about your condition. Now, apparently you suffered with trigeminal neuralgia. So what is that all about? But now you're no longer in a wheelchair, which is almost miraculous.
Correct.
How did all that happen?
Well, let me tell you the story. I'm going to take you back 20 years. I am walking with my wife. My left leg becomes weak, dragging it to hobble home. I see the neurologist who says, Terry, this could be bad or really, really bad. Now at night in bed next to Jackie, I think about my zingers, the jolts of electrical face pain, the trigeminal neuralgia that have been getting relentlessly worse for 20 years. Not wanting to be a burden, I'm secretly praying for a fatal diagnosis. But it turns out I have MS. So I see the best people, I take the newest drugs, but within 3 years, I'm in a tilt recline wheelchair. I take mitoxantrone infusions, Tysabri infusions, Cellcept, nothing helps. I am too weak to sit up at my desk. I order zero gravity chairs so I can recline back with my knees higher than my nose. And I learn to let go of my future and take each day as it unfolds. My face pains are relentlessly worse. They turn on. I'm grunting, I'm grimacing, tears are falling down my face. My 10-year-old daughter hugs me. And that triggers more jolts of pain. It takes all my strength to not pull away from my children when they're trying to comfort me. Now, fortunately, I am a physician. Night after night, I go to PubMed, I read the basic science, and I begin experimenting on myself. And the speed of my decline slows. And then I discover a study using electrical stimulation of muscles. I ask my physical therapist if I can try that. It's called eStim. He lets me have a test session. It hurts bad, but when it's over, I feel great. He says it's the endorphins, and I begin training with him, doing eStim to as much pain as I can tolerate. Now, all of my physicians have told me that because I have progressive MS, functions once lost will never come back. And so I know recovery is not possible, but I want to slow my decline. And what else could I be doing? I add daily meditation. I go back to my diet, the paleo diet, and I redesign it based on all the science that I've been studying. And 1 month later, I am strong enough to sit up at my desk. 3 months later, those horrible zingers, the trigeminal neuralgia of 27 years are gone. And 5 months later, I stun everyone at the hospital by walking without a cane down the hallways.
Wow.
And this really changes how I think about disease and health. It will change the way I practice medicine. It changes the research that I do. I started doing clinical trials, testing my protocol on others with great success. 10 years later, I received the Linus Award for my groundbreaking clinical research and patient care protocols. And now, really, it's my mission to teach clinicians how to use my protocol and to teach the public how to use my protocol. And so that's why I'm so thrilled to be here with you to help get this message out that, yes, you can have profound disability, but it's also possible to experience recovery in healing.
So my question to you is, why is there so much autoimmunity today? You know, I've been in the business 40 years. I've written 37 books. I've written about diet. I've written about female issues, male issues, the environment, detoxification, parasites, you name it. But today, the most important posts that I do on Facebook all have to do with autoimmune conditions. The kinds of things that we're finding out about people are just heartbreaking. Why do you think there's so much autoimmunity that abounds beyond MS?
It's really multifactorial. So we have the same genes that we've had for, thousands of generations, but we've radically changed our environment. We've changed what we eat. We've changed our toxin exposures. We've changed our physical activity routines. We've changed our sleep, our stress. And it's the accumulation of all those environmental factors that are speaking to our genes and our microbiome in very harmful ways. And so we have, about 25 million people with autoimmunity and another 100 million who have pain, fatigue, mental health problems, and auto antibodies, progressive damage to their organs, and are developing an autoimmune diagnosis. Then after 5 to 10 years, a second autoimmune diagnosis, and then a third and a fourth with progressively worse disability and progressively worse pain and worse function.
So we're becoming hostage to the environment. What has changed is not our body. We still have Stone Age bodies. It's an environmental shift.
Absolutely.
And what do you think is most toxic in the environment? I just wrote a book that actually deals with this. I think we're very much on the same page, so it's very gratifying to hear you.
It's accumulation of many insults. We have radically changed what we're eating. And so we have radically changed the microbes that live in our gut and help us run the chemistry of life. And part of that is, our brains are wired to crave salt, to crave sugar, to crave fat, to crave inactivity and comfort. And because, humans have learned how to create businesses, and our businesses have learned how to create products that match our biologic cravings. And these products, unfortunately, are filled with compounds that feed the wrong bacteria that are not contributing to our health. So we're missing important bacteria. We have harmful bacteria. And of course, we are flooded with new chemical structures that our ancestors would have never had to encounter. And we've changed the relationship with light, with the circadian rhythm, with physical activity. It's a multitude of factors.
Now, with your MS, what do you think precipitated it?
Okay, so I go through this in great detail in my book, The Wahls Protocol, at a really high level. I have the genetic vulnerability, and
tell me what that genetic vulnerability was. We've got a sophisticated listening audience.
Yeah, so you could probably pick any autoimmune condition that you might have, whether it's rheumatoid arthritis or MS or lupus, psoriasis. We've identified about 200 to 300 different genes, and slightly different for each autoimmune condition, that will increase your risk. The vast majority of people with any particular gene don't get the problem. So it might increase your risk 0.5%, 1%. So I have these genetic vulnerabilities. Well, let's say I had 5 genes. We don't know, but we'll just sort of pick an arbitrary number. That 5 genes that increase my risk ever so slightly. I'm born vaginally, so that's good. But I'm given formula. So that's instead of breast milk. So I'm not getting the right mix of lactobacillus bifidobacter in my gut. I have recurrent sore throat infections, ear infections, a lot of antibiotics before the age of 3. And then I get a tonsillectomy. Those early antibiotics before the age of 3 shifted my microbiome towards more candida, more yeast, So now I have a leakier gut. Food proteins get into my bloodstream. And that triggers, likely at a very early age, sensitivity to the gluten protein in wheat, rye, barley, many ancient grains. And so that's occurring over several years. That increased immune response to wheat leads to excessive cytokines or inflammation molecules in my bloodstream and then in my brain. And over time, this leads to activation of my microglia in my brain and probably the beginning of autoimmune processes as an adolescent. Then I go off to college, to medical school. And during medical school, I am exposed to more toxins. Well, actually, I should step back. I'm an artist before medical school. A lot of oil painting. So in the oil painting, heavy metals, cadmium, mercury, lead, as part of the pigments in oil paints, solvents. I do a lot of metal work, including soldering. So now we have lead. I go to medical school, my vitamin D levels go down. I am so thrilled to be doing gross anatomy. I am in the gross lab making all these beautiful, beautiful drawings of the cadavers. And so my exposure to formaldehyde is probably 3 times that of my classmates because I am so thrilled to have the opportunity to draw cadavers.
Oh my gosh.
And then the next year I go into my clinical rotations. So more stress, less sleep, less vitamin D. And that's when my trigeminal neuralgia begins. And then that will continue to worsen for the next 27 years. And, high stress, not enough sleep, not enough vitamin D, the food sensitivity. I don't realize it that my low-fat vegetarian diet, filled with lots of gluten and some cheese, is contributing to my problem. The toxins stored in my fat contributing to my problem. The dysbiosis contributing to my problem. And my face paint's getting worse. Then, as I mentioned with my initial story, in 2000, I had weakness of my left leg, and that's when I get the diagnosis of MS. But the problems began 20 years earlier during medical school, or maybe the problems began when I'm 3 and I developed the leaky gut and the probable candida overgrowth. So it depends on how far you want to go back into the processes when things began.
So I have heard from many of my cohorts and colleagues that most MS people have a very large overload of mercury. Did you find that that was an issue with you particularly?
No, not really. I certainly had some evidence of heavy metals, some evidence of toxins, and we don't know for sure. I did a toxicology screen on myself 2 years into my recovery. Now I'm already biking, hiking, and being physically active. And I assume that toxic load was part of my problem. So I had created a very rigorous detox protocol. So we don't really know what my level of toxic burden would have been at my nadir. But I think it's a multifactorial problem. And that's been the case for most patients that I've encountered in my clinics, my clinical trials, that very rarely is it just one insult.
Interesting. Do you actually work with patients now?
Yes, absolutely. As I mentioned, we've touched the lives of millions. We've put thousands through our 5-day challenges. And again, we send people through our seminar. So we absolutely are touching the lives of many thousands every year.
I love that. Well, you're exceedingly well known, very well respected in the field. And tell my listeners where you have these seminars. These are virtual seminars.
Yeah, there was a time when we all did in-person events. So we did them in Iowa when we could do in-person events.
Way
But in
back
the
when.
this last year, we've converted things to virtually. And that has just been phenomenal because we could serve more people, and people from all over the globe could participate. And it ended up being a more intimate and responsive environment, because when I did things virtually, I could flip back and forth between my PowerPoint and a conversation individually with people, answering questions. Ended up being, I think, a much more engaging event. So even though when we get to in-person events, I know we will continue to have a virtual event as well, because that has just been so well received and so impactful.
That's so motivating for so many of my listeners all over the world. Now,
Yes.
if you were to highlight, now you at one point you were a vegetarian, and then you
Yes.
changed into a paleo style diet. What are the major dietary approaches that you highlighted?
Well, in what I've done, Dr. Gittleman, is we've created a structure in the Wahls diet plans so that if people are vegetarian for very important spiritual and religious beliefs, we have a plan that works for them. We've created a plan that helps the paleo have a more optimal diet, because the paleo diet, as much as I like that, by no means did it fix my problems. I had declined another 5 years after turning paleo. And then we've created a plan for ketogenic eaters, and we have plans for those who are willing to do fasting programs. So we help people identify their health issues, which plan will be most optimal for them, and how to develop a eating plan that will work for them and their family to get the best outcomes possible.
For their needs. Any particular lifestyle approaches that you find really revolutionary?
Well, one of the first steps we talk about is how important it is to get the inner aspect of your healing journey more deeply understood. And a great question to begin with is, what is it that you want your health for? And I like following up with, if your health could moderately improve, what would you like to do to celebrate that in a physical way with your family? Which might be a walk to the park, or a little fun run, or maybe it's a dance with your son or daughter at their wedding that's coming up. So it's a very personalized question, because we have to elicit the person's heart to be willing to go on this journey of, I'm going to begin to work on my self-care routine, and take steps that resonate with who I am.
So is the soul then, would you say, I know this is true for cancer, that sometimes the soul is out of sync with the body, or people have lost their mission, have lost their reason for living? Do you think there's a disconnect somewhere between the body, mind, and spirit with these people with autoimmune issues?
Well, a very interesting observation is that if you've had more adverse childhood events, you have a greater vulnerability to a serious autoimmune illness or a very serious health challenge. That's certainly what I've seen in my clinical trials, what I have seen in my clinics, is that very often there is a very serious adverse childhood events, one or more, and helping the individual address those issues along with some of the other diet and self-care routines, it really can have a profound beneficial impact for that individual.
How do you resolve that kind of thing way back in childhood? Are we talking about some kind of abuse, Dr. Wahls?
Well, this might be physical abuse, sexual abuse. It might have been that there was a death in the family that was very impactful for that young person. It might have been a physical trauma, a car accident, a very difficult surgery, or a health crisis for another family member. So there can be a number of potential traumas that young person had to deal with. And so depending on the trauma, it might be that we are asking if the person's open to doing talk therapy and getting a referral to a mental health professional to help them work through whatever issues that are still remaining from that adverse childhood event. And others have done a really marvelous job of addressing the adverse childhood events. And so there's not a residual problem, and we're just moving on to the self-care routines.
And so when it comes to self-care, is there a basic foundation that you use? You had mentioned to me offline that meditation was important.
Yeah. So it's sort of the big buckets are, we have to address diet quality. That will be really important. A stress management program, a movement program will be really helpful. And what I've learned over time, although it's my opinion that the most important thing to do is fix the diet first and then move on to stress and movement. For some individuals, though, they may not be ready to do food, but they are really ready to do the stress reduction. And so I have to work with my patients to figure out, in the self-care domain, where are you ready to take action? And where that person is ready to take action is where we have them start. Because if I choose an area that I think is a priority, but it's not a priority to them, they won't be successful. I can tell them, given your circumstances and your story, these are the most impactful areas to work on. But now you tell me where you're feeling like you're open to working. And for some folks, they're like, yep, they hear my message and they're like ready to follow my advice precisely. Others will say, you know what, I just can't deal with the food, but I am open to prayer and meditation. Let's start there.
So would you say that the people that come to see you, mainly autoimmune issues?
Yeah, definitely, mainly autoimmune. We certainly have a lot of folks with multiple sclerosis with a what I call neuroimmune. So they have mental health and neurologic symptoms as part of their autoimmune disease. So they might have rheumatoid arthritis with mental health issues. They might have systemic lupus with mental health issues, or they might have MS. And so we really focus on diet and self-care routine. After I've done this very careful interview and assessment to figure out what are their root causes.
So you get to the root. We're looking at the chronic root causes of whatever their issues are. Do you deal with people that have cancer as well?
As a matter of fact, yes. We've had quite a number of folks who have cancer or who have had cancer and have come to see me. And we talk with them about the diet and self-care routine that should be, in my recommendation, part of their treatment plan for their cancer. Because whatever they decide to do for treating their cancer they still have to think about how to take care of their brain and body. So on the other side, they have a brain that still works and a body that still works. And that's where my program has been so successful. And we've had people come in with metastatic cancer, terrible prognosis, and they have implemented my programs along with their cancer treatment programs, and they resolve their metastatic cancers and are cancer-free now 7 years later.
So is there a particular cancer personality that you note? Is there a particular autoimmune personality? Can you make some commonalities here, connect the dots a little bit?
Well, I've really not thought about, quote, personality traits. I certainly see a wide variety of personalities that come to us with their chronic health challenges.
Character traits are these people that do for others but don't do for themselves. I mean, I've heard that with the cancer personality, for example, people that don't do enough self-care but are very concerned about other people, so don't have a strong immune system or don't have real good barriers, really good ways of separating themselves from other people and doing what they need to do for themselves and being true to themselves.
Well, I do think it's an interesting observation that in the autoimmune world, there is a predominance of women over men, and that varies according to the specific autoimmune diagnoses. In a part that is related, no doubt, to the estrogen effect and the testosterone effect, and the greater tolerance that we have to have for foreign tissues, since we become pregnant and have foreign tissues in the uterus growing those infants. That is, so women have more autoimmune issues. Women often have self-esteem issues. We often have issues where we will put the needs of our children ahead of our needs. We'll put the needs of our spouse ahead of our needs. Is that a personality that's common to women? Is that a personality that's common to autoimmune? There's certainly going to be overlap.
Wonderful overlap. Now, if there are 3 things people could begin doing right now from your work, what would they be? Top 3 things.
Well, I'd say that the top one is improved diet quality. And a great thing to start would be to eat more non-starchy vegetables. Yeah, I'm very keen on having people eat more greens, more kale, lettuce, parsley, these types of greens in your diet. Yeah, and actually, I give people the encouragement to have 3 cups of greens each day. And you can measure that raw. If you cook it down, it's hardly anything. You put it in your smoothie, it's hardly anything. Or a big plate full of salad. So that's a great step. Then step number 2 that I encourage is to spend time thinking about what is it that you want your health for, and have a lot of clarity. And visualize, if my health could moderately improve, what would I be doing with that? And that clarity helps people have the resolve to begin to address the other diet and lifestyle interventions that we teach.
Now, you're located in Iowa, I understand?
Correct. We're in Iowa. That's sort of in the middle of the United States, in farming country. I'm a farm kid. I grew up in rural Iowa, milking cows and getting to ride my horse growing up. So,
oh, I love it. So you're a real. Would that be a Midwesterner, my dear?
Yes. We grew up in the Midwest, a small family farm in Iowa.
I love that. I'm a city slicker. I think you can tell by my questioning and so forth. So the question is, do you see people in person? That's what I'm trying to get at. If somebody needed to see you for an assessment in person, I know you do a lot visually and through the internet, but could somebody come and see you, Dr. Wahls, if they desire to?
For the next couple of months, still no, because I still think travel is difficult because of the pandemic. However, people can reach out to us at customer service at terrywahls.com to get the little more details about the types of programs that we have to help people and when we anticipate being able to see people in person again.
So it seems to me from what we're discussing is that the Wahls Protocol is good for everybody. You're customizing a program for somebody's personal needs, their personal health issues, their needs to connect their body, mind, and spirit. You do a real assessment of the total person. Am I close to, am I on track?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so
and we also help them identify with the whole family, because my preference is that this is a family intervention.
Oh, wait a minute. That is really innovative. Tell me why you think that. That's so interesting to me.
So it's the environment that really creates the health for the individual. And my success at improving my diet and self-care routine will be much greater if these changes are done as a family. For example, if someone has a child who has a major health challenge, say the child has a autoimmune condition, MS or lupus, and if we have that child make diet and lifestyle changes, but only the child, they will fail miserably. But if the whole family improves their diet, the whole family begins a meditative practice, and the whole family begins paying more attention to walking and general exercise, now that child will be successful. And the same is true for adults. For me, if I'm changing my diet and lifestyle, if my spouse is doing that with me, and we as a family, we change our eating patterns together as a family, now I will be vastly more successful.
I love that. So this is a real holistic integrative program you're offering.
Yes,
Do you have
absolutely.
a team of workers, a kind of network for the Wahls Protocol that you?
Yes, and we have a team of clinicians that we've trained all over the globe. So if you have practitioners that are listening to this, we have a training program that's online. It's a combination of online and live taught virtually. So they can learn about that at terrywahls.com/certification.
Oh, so that's going to be very helpful for my practitioners. Would you just repeat that information once again, Dr. Wahls?
Sure. terrywahls.com/certification. The training is a combination of online materials and materials that are taught virtually as well. So we have people from all over the world in a network now.
I'm so impressed with what you're doing. Is there anything else you'd like to impart before we end our wonderful interview and podcast?
So again, if you're wanting to learn more about my program and the diet, go to terrywahls.com/diet to get a one-page summary that you can download.
Very, very good. Now, what's up for you? I know that your book was updated, I think it was last year. What's in the future for Terry Wahls and family?
Well, I do clinical research. We have another study that's going on right now for people who've been newly diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so that's always very, very exciting. And we're developing more online programs for training patients how they can do a better job of self-care for themselves.
Well, I want to thank you for all the wonderful work you're doing. I hope that you'll come back and update us on your future research.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank all my wonderful listeners for tuning in yet once again to First Lady of Nutrition podcast. I especially want to acknowledge my newest sponsor, CS Health, who produce a very unusual activated broccoli product called Vitalica. It's something that I take on a daily basis because it's a sulforaphane, and I use it as an internal sunscreen. So there's some good information for all of you. So have a wonderful week, my friends. Shalom till 120. Lots of love. Hi, everybody. I'm Ann Louise here with just one more thing. Thank you so much for being a fan of my work. And if you like this video, please check out all my other videos. Please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications.